So it is 7:01. I'd like to welcome everybody today to the special council meeting for Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. Roll call, Ms. Ledger.
Mayor Baker.
Here.
Member Volter.
Here.
Member Neary.
Here.
Member Neiman. Member Kelly.
Here.
Member Lovins.
Here.
Member Baszler.
Here.
City Administrator Fawcett.
7:01.
Here.
City Attorney Edmondson.
Here.
Well, I have a moment of silence and then we'll do the pledge. We can use the flag to my right here for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we're going to move along to the mayor's report. I have two, I think, are pretty exciting things that we're going to bring up today for the mayor's report. And they both get us, quote unquote, back to normal. The first one is, this is the last Zoom meeting that we'll be doing that will not be open to the public, where we won't have in-person attendance available. If any council members or administration are not comfortable being around other people, that is understandable. You can still join via Zoom, but we're going to be offering in-person meetings with everyone now starting to get vaccinated. I spoke with the health department and they said it's okay to start to get back to in-person meetings. So next month, May 4th, we're going to have our normal meeting on the first Tuesday of the month. It'll be down at the education building down at 200 Clay Street, I believe. So looking forward to seeing everybody. Public is welcome to come. Typically, your typical precautions are required. Your 6 foot of distance, your masks, all that good stuff. But we will be meeting in public once again on May 4th. What a crazy year it's been, and we're excited about that. The second thing that's probably a little bit more exciting about getting back to normal is, again, speaking with the health department, and myself and Mayor Charlie Cleaves over in Bellevue, we were discussing with the members of the Memorial Parade Committee, and we all know that Dayton and Bellevue have the greatest Memorial Day parade in the region. It's been going on forever, and last year we had to miss it due to the pandemic. According to the health department, also due to the amount of vaccinations that are available, we will be able to have our parade this year. So that's pretty exciting. The committee's getting together. They are putting together the volunteers. They're putting together the participants. So expect that to happen on May 31st. Let your friends and family know if they want to come and see it, or if they're participating. We're really excited to get back to our parade and honor our heroes. So those are the two things that I wanted to bring out on the mayor's report. Now we'd like to move along we have a special guest tonight from Van Gorder, Walker and Company, Mr. John Chamberlain. John did the audit for the city of Dayton. So John's going to go through that audit and present it to council. And Mr. Chamberlain, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate it. When you said you had something really exciting to tell, I thought for sure you were going to introduce me for the auditor, you know, but such is life. Anyway, my name is John Chamberlain. I'm a CPA and partner at Van Gorder, Walker and Company in Erlanger, and appreciate the opportunity to do the audit work for the city of Dayton again this year. You should have 3 things from me that Donna's provided you. You have a PDF copy of the financial statements, a governance letter that's issued to the city council, and then a PowerPoint presentation that I've provided. So we'll start off with the PowerPoint presentation first. I want to start off by thanking Donna and her staff Former city administrator Michael Giffen took good care of us when we were there doing the audit. This has been done since about February. We have to wait that long to get the audit from the Bellevue Dayton Fire Department. So just as a reminder, that's why it always comes a little later in the year. But I think your March agenda was a little too busy for us, so we got pushed off till April. So we've been sitting on this for a while, ready to get it done. The audit presentation. If you look at the second slide, just shows our opinion, and our opinion is fairly stated. That means that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. This is what's called an unmodified opinion, meaning no modifications are required to be made to the opinion. And that's generally the highest opinion that we give. The next slide details internal control and compliance. As a part of every governmental audit that we do, we review the internal controls of the organization and look at your risk, look at your segregation of duties, and try to determine if there are any significant control issues or control weaknesses that you have. And so we've done that, and we have no material weaknesses, so there's no large weaknesses, and then no significant deficiencies in internal control that we're required to report. So for a small city, that's a very good position to be in. As a part of every Yellow Book audit or governmental audit, we also look at compliance, compliance with bond debt agreements, anything like that, laws, the Kentucky Revised Statutes, your SERS agreement, and no issues of non-compliance to report. So good on you there. We did make one planned adjustment to net position, and that's to adjust the net investment or loss in the Bellevue Dayton Fire Department joint venture. Those are on your financial statements as a joint venture between you and the city of Bellevue, and each year we adjust those financial statements about half between each city, and they had about $1 million loss, and that's really because of the SERS. It's a net position loss due to SERS, and you'll see that in your financial statements here in a moment. But they have the same issue with the hazardous duty fire department there. The next slide shows cash, capital assets, and then your investment in the fire department over the last 6 years. You see your cash position there at $2.6 million. A little bit of a hit from last year, but you did do about $524,000 in capital outlay expenditures, that aren't required. So those are things that you did this year because you had some extra funds. So and so that's really where that loss comes from, or that reduction in cash comes from. A good rule of thumb for us is at the end of June is to have about 3 months worth of operating cash on hand. That gets you through to your property tax collection and some of your other collections that come in November. And so 3 months for Dayton would be about $1.2 million in cash. You have about 2.6. So you've got about six and a half months worth of cash on hand at June 30th. So that's a strong cash position. And the city's been in a strong cash position, as you can see there, the last 6 years. The next slide is a citywide debt comparison for all funds. And you have just a little bit of current liabilities. Those are your accounts payable, just normal payroll and bills that you owe in June, July. And then the long-term debt is the capital lease, and that's the capital lease that you share with Bellevue on the fire truck, down to $217,622 at the end of June 30th. I think that gets paid off this year. You had one more payment on that. The elephant in the room is the SERS, that orange that you see there, that just continues to grow. Again, that's not a debt payment that you're going to get a bill for necessarily. The way they claw that back is through higher pension costs every year, and so that between your police department with the hazardous duty there. And then your non-hazardous duty governmental employees, those pension costs are increasing yearly, and you'll see that in your budget process this year as well.
In fact, they're going to go up 12% every every year for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's about right. That's the projection from KRS.
Right.
Next slide is just revenues versus expenditures, and this is all sources for all governmental funds. And you see there, expenditures outpaced revenues this year. You had a net loss of almost 300,000, 296,000. Again, $3.2 million in the bank, so that, or $2.6 million in the bank. So not a problem there. You can absorb a little net loss like that to get some projects done. But that was compared to about a $6,000 net loss in the previous year. You did receive about $320,000 in CARES Act funds, so that helps offset some of that loss and allowed you to do some projects without incurring a significant net loss. General revenues increased about 1.7% from the prior year, and expenditures increased about 8.3%. Total revenues at $4.455 million, again, about a 1.7% increase. Taxes of about 1.6 million of that. Licensing permits 1.3 million. Charges for services, a lot of that is your trash at 404,000. And then steps on down there. You see the CARES Act at 319. Expenditures about $4.7 million, 8.3% over the prior year. Police at 1.2, fire and EMS contribution at 924,000, and general government 585,000, professional services 536, and then your capital outlay that I mentioned earlier about 524,000. Next few slides are just some yearly comparisons across some of your major expenditures. Your police expenditures actually decreased just slightly this year. Your fire expenditures up about 4%. Your public works expenditures, and those can vary pretty widely based on the type of project you're doing. We don't capitalize everything in public works. So sometimes, a little bit of road repaving can cause that one to jump around a little bit. So that's 19% increase. And then general government, about an 18% increase, and waste collection just right at, that hasn't changed really appreciably in the last 4 years. Okay. Next, let's go to the governance letter. And I'm just going to, just to let you know what that is. That letter is a letter that's required by our profession to those in charge of governance, you as the city council. And it just gives us an opportunity to communicate directly to you as a city council and let you know if we have any concerns, any problems, any significant adjustments, any new accounting positions, anything like that might be egregious or anything like that. So I'll let you read that on your own time. It does mention a small reclassified statement that we made, and then we also mentioned the internal control letter that mentions the internal control report that I mentioned earlier. We did not provide a management comment letter this year. It pains me to say, I love making my management comments, but I really didn't find anything that was worthy of a comment this year. So that means the processes that you have in place are pretty solid. I'm not saying that there's no room for improvement, but there's solid processes in place. The financial statements themselves, Donna wanted me to read these word for word, but I think I'll just skip over and hit some high points. 2 and 3 is the auditor's opinion. That's about 2 pages of accounting and legalese to say it was an unmodified opinion. Page 4 through 8 is what's called the management's discussion and analysis, and that's a very good executive summary of the financial statements, of the financial position of the city. And this is kind of where I stomp the floor and tell you to do your homework. I would encourage you to kind of read through that 5-page MD&A, page 4 through 8. It is your fiduciary responsibility to understand the financial position of the city, and that's a good place to start. It's a good place to review without a lot of crazy accounting terminology. Starting on page 9, the statement of net position. And this is what's called a government-wide statement of net position, and that it includes all of the long-term assets and long-term liabilities of the city. And you see there your cash position of $2.6 million. Accounts receivable, so those are all current, totals $922,000, so $3.5 million in current assets. Your non-current assets are your capital assets, less accumulated depreciation of almost $3.9 million. The deferred outflows, deferred inflows, those are actuarial terms that are related to the SERS audit or to the SERS number. And so those are in there as well. They act as a receivable and a payable to SERS. The deferred outflow, about 1.6 million, the deferred inflow down closer to the bottom page, about 388,000. Your current liabilities right at 300,000. The vast majority of that are just accounts payable at June 30th. Your non-current liabilities include the non-current portion of the capital lease obligation of 217,000. The investment in your joint venture, that's basically the negative position of your investment with the Dayton Fire Department of about 2.1 million, and then the net pension OPEB liability of $5.1 million. So total liabilities is about 7.8 million. And then you had the deferred inflow right at 8.1 million. Assets minus liabilities is net position right at $899,000. You're still in a positive net position. That's better than a lot of agencies in Kentucky can say right now due to the SERS. Page 11 is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is on a current basis, in that it does not include long-term assets and long-term debts. The picture becomes a little rosier when you look at the balance sheet because you see your total governmental funds about $3.6 million in assets. Your liabilities only being current liabilities of $555,000. Assets minus liabilities is your fund balance right at $3 million. Again, those are broken down between general fund, municipal road aid fund, and the urban renewal fund. The other governmental funds are your other funds, and those are summarized in the back. I'll show you those in a second. Page 13 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And that's the income statement for the financial statements. Again, broken down by general fund, municipal road aid fund, urban renewal, and the minor funds. You see the total revenues of 4.1 million, total expenditures of 4.7, giving you a $616,000 net loss. By the time we add in our CARES Act of 319,000 down there at the bottom, that brings our revenues up to 4.4 that we had talked about earlier. Net change in fund balance of $296,000 to the negative. Questions on that? I know that's a little confusing. Pages 15 through 37 are the notes to the financial statements. And I do encourage you to look through these. There's a lot of information in the notes, policies, procedures, how you handle your accounting, that type of thing. Page 21, note D does go over the investment in the joint venture. We've talked a lot about the investment in the fire department tonight, so it does mention that. Note E is your capital assets note, so it shows new capital assets, the depreciation on those assets and retirements. That's kind of interesting. On page 22, note F is the capital lease payable note. Shows how much is due in the next couple of years on the capital lease payable. And I thought that was paid off this year. That's not. That was something else. Yeah, you got a few more years on that. That's only $40,000 a year. Page 23 and 24, 23 through 34, I'm sorry, is the SERS note. And that is everything you wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask about the county employee retirement system. Lots of information in there. Page 35, note M is a note on the tax abatements that the city currently has. And so you have a couple of those. That would be a good note for you as council members to familiarize yourself with. There is a note on page 37 about the global pandemic and how it affected the city, and then also on CARES Act funding. Page 38 is the budgetary comparison schedule. And you see there, the schedule set up, it's your beginning balance, your original budget, I should say, your final budget, any your actual revenues and actual expenditures, and then a variance column. And the variance column, a positive variance, means you received more than you budgeted or you expended less than you budgeted. A negative variance is the opposite. So you generally want to see a positive variance in that right-hand column. Your budgets, your revenues, all or most of your revenues were really a little hopeful. So your revenues weren't as high this year as what you had budgeted, but you started off with $2.3 million moving forward, so you have plenty of funds, so nothing to worry about. Your appropriations, you budgeted 5.3 million. You spent 4.2. That's right at $1 million under your budget. So good management to budget. Basically, you saw your revenues weren't performing like you had expected, and you were careful with your expenditures. Okay. The next 2 pages are the same setup for the Municipal Road Aid Fund and for the Urban Renewal Fund. And you'll see the actual but actual revenues and expenditures in both those funds with positive variances. Page 41 through 44 are required notes for the for SERS. They're broken down between the pension system and the other post-employment benefits, a health insurance portion of the SERS, and then also further broken down between non-hazardous and hazardous duty employees. So there's 4 pages of schedules, 10-year schedules for those. Page 45, 46, I'm sorry, 45 and 46 are combining balance sheets and income statements for your minor funds. I had mentioned earlier that those get pulled forward for your park board, your tax incentive fund, and your capital projects fund. And so those are combining a combining balance sheet and a combining income statement for those funds. Page 47, 48, and 49 are budget to actual supplementary information for those minor funds as well. Page 50 and 51 is the required report on internal control and compliance. Again, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls and no issues of non-compliance to report. Otherwise, very good audit report, no findings worth talking about, and very good report. Any questions or anything I can answer?
So overall, Mr. Chamberlain, we look to be doing a pretty solid, yes?
Absolutely, right.
Good. Does any council or administration have any questions for Mr. Chamberlain? All right, we're gonna close these questionings here in 3,
You ready for the exam?
and 1. Well, this is great. We really appreciate your work on this. Is there anything else you'd like to speak to council about, sir?
Not me today. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you aboard, and we'll let you go early.
All right, thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you next year.
All right, thank you very much.
You take good care. So moving along on the agenda, now to the updates. So if we can get an approval of the minutes from the March 2nd, 2021 public hearing and council meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Member Kelly's made a motion to accept the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by member Neary. Do we have any comments regarding the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Member Neiman, I see you're there now. I've seen you there for the last 20 minutes. So is your audio okay? Is your video okay? Everything all right for you?
Yeah, it's on. I just got bumped out of the email to get into the Zoom, and I couldn't get back in, but I got in. So sorry.
Well, happy to see you, and make sure that she's noted as being in attendance. The second portion of the updates we have is the appointment of Randy Bidish to the Code Enforcement Board. Do we have a motion to accept Randy for the Code Enforcement Board?
I'll make a motion to accept Randy Bidash for the board.
Member Neiman's made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Member Baszler made the second. Do you have any comments regarding the appointment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Moving right along to the ordinances and orders. Order number 2021, number 8 Romeo, to execute a memorandum of agreement for the development of the regional hazard mitigation plan through FEMA. Do we have a motion to accept order number 2021, number 8 Romeo?
I'll make that motion to accept that.
Member Neary's made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Now we'll open up the floor to comments. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Pardon me. To order number 2021, number 8 Romeo.
I was just wondering if we lost Jeff.
Oh, that's a good point.
He said he had a bad connection.
Yeah, just noted.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Scott.
Just a little background about this, Mayor. This is, the county is asking all the cities to be involved in this program. FEMA is asking that they put together this mitigation plan, and that we are participating with other cities in the county to be a part of that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Fawcett. So no
And
comments. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What entity is overseeing or coordinating all of this, Mr. Fawcett?
The fiscal court.
Thank you.
Any other comments regarding? Can I please have a roll call, Ms. Ledger, for order 2021, 8 Romeo?
Member Lovins? Member Lovins?
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Aye.
Member Baszler?
Aye.
Member Volter? Member Neary?
Aye.
Member Nyman?
Neiman.
Member Neiman?
Aye, there we go.
Member Kelly?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And I was, pardon me, I'm gonna interrupt myself right here. I'm remiss to welcome Jessica Lovins to City Council. Her first meeting, and she's been an amazing neighbor for many years, and an advocate and volunteer for Dayton. So Jess, welcome to council. We're excited to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here so far.
Sorry for not mentioning that in my report earlier. Moving along, order number 2021, number 9 Romeo. This is something Mr. Yoder's been working on, installing a kayak launch down on Aaron's Way. So there's a grant up, I believe, and it's the Recreational Trails Program installation of a canoe kayak launch in the city. Do we have a motion to accept order 2021, number 9 Romeo? Anyone? Scott, you're on mute if you're trying to speak.
I would like to make the motion to accept so we can have open discussion.
Understood. Member Baszler has made the motion to accept. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Member Kelly's made the second, which opens up the floor for comments. Member Baszler, you had some questions about the discussion. Perhaps you'd like to lead off.
Yeah, I mean, last time we heard about this, it was a tentative thing, and I just need to know some details about access to the ramp, parking to the ramp, accessibility for the ramp, how much it's going to cost the city, and so on and so forth.
Great. Mr. Yoder, I believe you might be able to help Mr. Baszler in his questions and maybe explain the program and the grant itself.
Yeah. Scott, as you may remember, we discussed this about a year ago, to be exact, and those exact same questions, but let's review it again. It's about $170-some thousand for this. It's an 80-20 match program, so our match is about $35,000. It goes off of the Aaron's Way Trail, about where the old boat ramp used to be. I can call up I don't have the map on me right now, but exactly where it was last year. It will be staircases going down there with landings. It will not be ADA accessible because that would require, with the level of slope there, a zigzag that would really make it impossible to do. The cost would be outrageous. So it's in line with the efforts to create a blue way from Portsmouth down past Louisville. It gives us an opportunity to get involved with that. One nice thing is that we already have a boat ramp jutting into the water there from previous things. We don't have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers in getting permission to put access there, since we already have it, and it is already on the maps of the Ohio River. Like I said, we applied for this last year, didn't get it. This is essentially a same reapply of the grant we applied for last year.
So, Mr. Yoder, all you're asking, just to clarify for council, is for a council's approval to make a request for this grant.
Yes.
You're not asking for 35 grand. You're not asking for 175 grand. You're asking for approval to ask for the money.
And as always, if we happen to get the grant, we can choose and look at it whether we want to accept it or refuse. I'm just trying to get this in here. We already have a recreational trails grant out with Sergeant Park, so we have some negative points on this, but I'm just keep on putting it out there. Sometimes, like we got for Sergeant Park, sometimes people turn some money back in and we can get it, or we might be get it for points this time. So yeah, it's a really good opportunity. There's a lot of movement to bring access to the riverfront in the river cities. And we would, Covington has just done it, and we would be the first city in Campbell County really to do that. So Wilder does. Wilder has it on the Licking. So creating a network of that. So this would go along with our efforts to develop the Aaron's Way Trail and everything that goes with it on that.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. So the floor is still open for comments, questions, concerns. So council, I ask you, what are your comments, your questions, your concerns?
Does this grant application lock us into that specific location?
Into that specific location, we could probably modify it if there's something wrong with that location. Right now, that's the only location accessible by the Aaron's Way Trail. Are you thinking when phase 2 or phase 3 are done, moving it there?
Well, I just think that, and this came up in the discussion before, was that's about 100 yards away from anywhere where you could park. And it's also right behind the homes. So if you're hauling your kayak down there, 100 yards to haul your kayak, it seems somewhat in an inaccessible spot. Now, granted, there is existing structure there, but I tried to get down to it, and it doesn't look like that much of that is salvageable. So I think we'd really be starting from scratch. I definitely want to reconnect to the river for fishing, for kayaking, etc. I do question the location of this. If you were to say we could build it for $35,000 in that spot, I don't know that I'd agree to that spot. Maybe in the swale there at McKinney, That may be a
let's-
better spot to look at because it is closer to the road, more accessible.
We could probably work with that. I mean, it's general location. You know, they don't pinpoint me to the exact GPS coordinates, but I would say generally in that section of the trail, if we got it, this would be the place to put it. Now, if other sections were completed, there might be other places we could put it. It looks to me in phase 2, that's even further away from parking. And phase 3, though we got the grant a year or two ago, we really haven't moved very much farther on getting approval from phase 3 from KYTC. So that would be years out.
And
So
who would be the authority approving this grant?
RTP is Department of Local Governments.
Okay, so we're not involving KYTC at all on
No,
this one.
KYTC, because it doesn't go anywhere near a road, is not involved.
And in applying for the grant, we're just applying for it with no strings as far as location or absolutely we have to do it. In other words, if we were to be awarded the grant, we can refuse it later on,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, we can come back at the sign of the MOA process, and it happens all the time. You know, maybe we don't have the funding for it, or maybe there's some other issues. Before you sign the memorandum of agreement, you can choose not to do it.
And the figures that you have here, I think $35,000 for the city's 20% and $170,000, I believe, for the grant.
Yeah. Or at
So
least the total grant is like 170, and then we pay 20%. That equals about 35. So the grant request.
So the grant then would be for the balance, roughly 135,000.
Yep.
And do you believe that that ramp can be built for 175,000?
Yes.
I'll take your word on it.
I mean, I've gotten quotes on it for that much. It seems about that. Actually, you know, I think it probably could be. It's, you know, I think that's well within what it would cost to put a staircase down.
And there are no pre-designed schematics or anything on this.
Not at this point, no.
Okay.
So
I just
there's-
don't want to over-promise and under-deliver. I
Mhm.
mean, if we get everybody excited about a boat ramp coming and get the grant and everything and find out that it's going to be less than what was expected, that's what my fear is.
I mean, we don't allow vehicles on errands away, right? So we wouldn't be able to like back anything up to drop off kayaks or.
I mean, if you have a kayak, it's a lot. A lot of people carry their kayaks and carry their canoes down to put it. I don't think it's that far. I mean, yeah, I can understand. You'd love to have it 10 steps away, but most put-ins, you know, require walking with a kayak.
Where do you imagine them parking without any city parking available? Let's say by B&B, we don't own that property. Where is the nearest place that they're parking?
I would hope that would be an issue that we would solve in the next couple of years as future development.
It's not B&B, by the way, just Queen City or your boats too.
All right, my correction.
No worries. Do we have any other questions regarding Mr. Yoder's attempt to apply for grant under 2021 number 9 Romeo? Comments, concerns?
I just had a quick question about it.
Sure.
I've been down there, you pass B&B, and there's kind of like, I mean, this is my experience, but there's one kind of way you can sneak down there, and it's all rocks and dirt, and it's kind of steep, and then you better like get the right hole, because I can't remember the next time how I get in there, and then there's sort of like a silty kind of a beach down there, for lack of a better word, right? Like a little riverfront thing. So when I went down there, it was me holding onto sticks to like get down in there. Like, are you gonna make like some kind of stairway all the way down there? And
Yes, Beth, that's the point of the grant, is to create a place for a flat place at the top, possibly for some temporary boat storage, and a concrete staircase with landings going
Okay.
down. And so, yes.
okay,
So
so
it's designed.
kayak there, you'd pull out your kayak there and drag it down Aaron's Way, and then at some point in the future, you're hoping there's some sort of available parking.
Yes, and you generally carry your kayak instead of drag it, but yes,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
if you drag it on the concrete, you won't have a kayak without a hole in it for long.
Well, I did vote against this last year when it came up on the grounds of the location and what everybody else mentioned, having to portage your kayak for 100 yards. Considering the fact that the Queen City Riverboats property has just changed hands and the developer of Manhattan Harbor has future plans for that property, and the fact that this grant does not lock us into a specific location, I'd be fine for applying for it.
Okay.
And when the time comes when it is awarded, depending on the timeline, to work, see if we could work it in with the developer's plans for the Queen City Riverboats property, whatever they have there, or the swale at McKinney. I got to use the word swale, Ben. But again, I opposed it originally because of the location. I didn't think that location was worth $35,000, but I think this is worth at least exploring to get to that point.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. Do we have any other comments, questions, concerns?
I would say, I think it would be worthwhile to, see if we can get, this funding. But as other members have mentioned, I also have concerns about the location and, that it wouldn't be accessible to everyone if we're saying that that specific location can't be made ADA accessible. So those would be my concerns. But
I have one other thing, Mr. Fawcett. My understanding is that there's a program that we've been discussing about I believe the Army Corps of Engineers cleaning up the riverfront all along the southern bank.
Yes.
Could this be incorporated with that project?
I don't know that they would do any infrastructure improvements like that. This is mainly a natural solution that they're coming up with. So they try to avoid the hardscape type thing. So I doubt that this would be included in the scope of that project.
But would we have to jump through the same hoops that we do with the Corps of Engineers on flood wall issues to put something like this in?
Yeah, they might be, the trail, they might create a trail down that area that might help access to it, but that's about, I don't see them putting any concrete into a project like this one.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add something? I've looked into this, talked to the Army Corps about this. Before they get moving on the project, they'll be doing charrettes. And I think one of the things that we should include in our charrette is the intention to provide access hardscape into the riverfront. Because if we don't do that, and this project, this riverbank restoration goes on, we will be locked out of doing anything like this on the riverfront for about 30 years. So that's, there should be some thought when we go through and do this. It's a great program. I 100% support it. But if there's things you want to see on the riverfront, you may want to think about, we'd like to be able, and they could even incorporate it into the design that we'd like to put, and the Army Corps is supportive of access to the river for recreation. But it's one of those things that we need to keep an eye open on, that if we would like to have this, once the riverfront restoration is done, you're going to deal with the Army Corps if you try to rip up what they've done. So, and yes, the Army Corps doesn't build trails, but they do provide access to the river, and so
that's right.
So it's somatics, but yeah, they do trails, but it's not a trail per se. It's
Mainly for maintenance, but it can be used by the public because that's
yeah.
not public property.
And they even use those if you ever get to see the presentations on their projects. There are trails, and they promote them as trails, but they the Army Corps of Engineer are access to the infrastructure, the nature.
And they're generally natural trails, not hardscape.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mhm.
With the next phases down by the Queen City, would this ramp be access to all Dayton residents, or would it be open to everyone, or strictly for the development behind the flow walk?
As part of the recreational trails program, it would be accessible to Dayton residents, and essentially anybody who wanted to go down there. It couldn't be because of federal funds. It couldn't be private. And we are making an effort to make it as accessible as possible with railings and landings. It just probably can never be less than a 5% grade as we have it designed right now, which makes it wheelchair accessible. Maybe if another location pulled up and it came up from a different direction, we could do that. But if you were to go down that hillside, you'd be swaying back and forth a whole lot to get less than a 5% grade to that point. So we're working on making it accessible for people with low mobility, vision problems, any other problems. But Christina is right, and I'm completely honest on this. If you're in a wheelchair, probably not going to be able to manage those staircases. And it's one of those things you do. Some projects require staircases, and staircases have that challenge with them.
Would the city take on any sort of liability because of the ramp? Like, are we responsible for people getting injured or anything like that when given?
Like with any one of our parks, Scott, we have a liability.
This isn't a park, though.
Oh, it would be. It'd be considered a park.
So
I
this
mean,
would fall
any
under
of
the
our
park
infrastructure, anybody walking in Sargent Park. We've had boat ramps before in the city of Dayton. As long maybe it's something better for Alex to talk about liability. But we actually own the entire riverfront right there, so we're liable. You could say we're liable for anything that happens there.
Yeah, I was hoping to get a response from a lawyer.
Kentucky does have recreational use immunity statute that generally applies to recreational places and limits liability. Alex, you might, if you want to expand on that.
It does. There are, unfortunately, there are some misgivings with recreational immunity. There are ways around that. If we know and put up hazards that we know to be defective, things that weren't built to grade or to spec, all kinds of issues like that. But traditionally, there is some immunity that doesn't prevent anyone from suing us. Clearly, that can and will and does happen.
But there is some protection in the law for us if we wanted to use it.
There is.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? We have a motion and we have a second. Member, Ms. Ledger, can I please have a roll call?
Member Baszler?
Aye.
Member Volter? Member Neary?
Aye.
Member Neiman?
Aye.
Member Kelly?
Aye.
Member Lovins?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Mr. Yoder, please proceed with trying to get us some money for a canoe kayak launch. Moving along down to the discussion side, Ms. Ledger, she has asked for us to put on the agenda the animal tags. So typically, if you own a dog in the city of Dayton, or if you have a dog as a family member, I hate to say the word own, then you would be required to have a dog tag. And Ms. Ledger, how much does dog tags typically cost?
They cost $5.
So $5 for each member of Fido in your family. And then we would enforce these dog tag laws. And Ms. Ledger, if someone didn't have a dog tag, what was the fine? Do you know?
$50.
$50. Okay. And in the past, every year we buy X amount of dog tags for members. And Ms. Ledger, how much does that cost each year for us to buy those dog tags?
Around $100.
All right. And Ms. Ledger, in your experience in the past couple years, you don't have to go back too far. How many people have registered their dogs in the city of Dayton?
Since July of 2020, we've had 29.
29. So that's $145. So we're $45 in the black, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, another question, Ms. Ledger. How many fines have been imposed by Campbell County Animal regarding not having a dog tag?
Since July of 2020, none.
0?
Yes.
And you spoke with Ms. Baker, no relation, regarding, is she enforcing the dog tag issue?
She told me that she's not enforcing the dog tag issue, that the county encourages her, if she picks up a dog, to try to find the owner and take it back to the owner. They prefer that, she doesn't bring it out to the animal shelter. And usually in the past, Terry knows about where every dog in Dayton lives. So she just takes them back to the owners, and they've not been getting fines.
So these dogs are repeat offenders and breakouts.
They might be.
Well, that's probably how Terry knows where they live. So go ahead, please.
But, I did a little survey. We sent some, emails out to the clerks, and Highland Heights, Southgate, Fort Thomas, and Bellevue do not sell animal tags anymore. They just refer the people to buy their county tag and
tag.
Yeah. I just don't think it's fair to the people that buy it. Of the 29 people, really, it was only 23 families, because some of the people had multiple animals. And not only do you have to buy it for a dog, you have to buy it for a cat.
Oh, I didn't know cats had tags.
Yes.
Okay. So what you're requesting, Ms. Ledger, is that we do away with the ordinance that we have to tag our dogs and cats.
Yes, that is what I'm requesting.
Okay. And she asked me to do that by executive order, but I thought I would bring counsel in on this. Would you guys be in favor of removing the law of registering your dog? So it's open for discussion.
I would be.
Member Lovin said she would be.
I would be.
Member Neiman said she would be as well. So how about a discussion? Because it sounds like we have a first and a second. So I think what we need to do right now, and correct me if I'm wrong by Robert's Rules of Orders, is do we have a motion through council to remove the registration of animals through our tag program? And Ms. Lovins, you said yes?
Yes.
So you make that motion?
I make that a motion.
And Ms. Neiman, you second? Yes? She's frozen.
I'm frozen over and over. Hold on.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So you have a second.
Scott. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Member Baszler came in with the second and the save. All right, so now we can open it to comments. Does anybody have any comments regarding the dog, cat, fish tags?
I do. Will we be refunding the people who paid for this year? I mean, that would only be fair.
They expire June 30th anyway.
Okay. I wasn't sure when it did, but I just was curious. So
Why
this would go in effect at that point?
don't you repeal it the day after the tags expire?
To July 1.
Just not renew the program as of July 1.
Yeah,
I do
what?
find it interesting though, and I wasn't aware that it included cats because man, we would make a ton of money if everybody registered all the cats in town.
It'd be like herding cats.
Yeah.
We're going to need to do it in the form of an ordinance because that's the way it's done now. So we're going to need to have a first and second reading on it anyway.
To repeat.
You have enough time to do that.
So that'll put us about the end of June, you know, it'll put us into June anyway.
Correct. So the conversation will be in May 4th, our next in-person meeting. It would come up as an ordinance to remove it, and then June, you guys would vote on it. In July, it'd be law, yes?
That's correct.
All right, well, it sounds like, what other kind of comments do we have regarding this? None other? All right, well, we're going to go ahead and close it. So Ms. Ledger, if you please put on the May 4th, 2021 agenda to remove the dog tag, cat tag, ferret tag ordinance. We can vote on it then.
Would you like me to do a roll call on the motion?
Sure.
Member Neary?
Aye.
Member Neiman?
Aye.
Member Kelly?
Aye.
Member Lovins?
Aye.
Member Baszler?
Aye.
Thank you.
Member Volter is also out, so bad internet connection. Moving along on the discussion, I believe this is Pedestrian Safety Month, all April here in Dayton, Kentucky. So Mr. Neary had asked that we put on the agenda today the intersection signals for the corner of 6th and Berry. So Mr. Neary, what type of discussion would you like to have?
It's actually a couple twofold, and it all does relate to pedestrian safety and also traffic safety, and also what rights the city has versus KYTC, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. 2 years ago, council by majority voted to turn that intersection into a four-way stop. Reason being the 45-degree angle going over to Hansman's, the blind spot there, the traffic, the eastbound traffic trying to turn left on the Berry, especially in the mornings. The thought was that a four-way stop would be much more efficient, much safer, and wouldn't cost us anything. That was submitted to Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and it came back that they denied it. They said that the level of service, they're gauged by how fast cars can get from point A to point B. That's not my concern, really. I mean, I go through there every day. I'd gladly spend the 5 seconds to stop and make sure I didn't hit someone. It's divergent points of interest. My question that I would like for our city administrator and maybe our city attorney to investigate is, since the Transportation Cabinet turned Route 8 through our city into a business route, I read through tons of different KRS and Transportation Cabinet documents, and they were talking about they have control and maintenance of a primary road. My point of contention is a business route is not a primary road. And secondly, they don't maintain it, we do. So I'd like for the city attorney and city administrator to investigate, do we have the authority to mandate a change in that signal structure there? And I think when you come back with an answer, then council can decide whether or not we want to, you know, if we are allowed to do it, could we make it a four-way intersection? The second thing is on the pedestrian safety, not only at 6th and Berry, but all along our central business district is a problem. There's over 1/3 of a mile from Hansman's to Irvin Terrace. I understand from the city administrator's latest report and from talking with Mayor Baker that we are in the process of getting signage for pedestrian crossing. Could you clarify that?
Yeah.
I can elaborate, yes. We've spoken to some citizens. They are looking for, and not just Avenue citizens, but people up and below the avenue who are looking for reduced speed through the avenue, higher visibility for pedestrian crossing. So we look to our neighbors to the west of us in Bellevue, and they have the yellow signs at the crosswalks that say state law, pedestrian crossing, or whatever. Kind of slows down traffic, makes people a little bit more vigilant about people trying to cross. So I did speak with Mr. Lucas, Rick Lucas, department head for Public Works. He replied to us with a quote, and don't quote me on this, but I'm really close. I want to say it's $2,800 to outfit the avenue with those signs. That would be 10 different signs to hit every one of our crosswalks throughout the avenue. So yes, we did talk to him about that. We got that quote back probably 2-3 days ago. So we're working on a budget to see where it will come from in the budget. And yeah, that's been a conversation, but no decisions have been made.
And on that topic, I mean, I drive through Bellevue with those rubber cones in the middle of the road. Bellevue's traffic is a lot slower. And I know when you're pulling out from Walnut or Vine or even McKinney or Dayton Avenue, just trying to pull out is difficult enough, let alone trying to avoid hitting a cone. I wonder about the amount of confusion that would cost. 2 years ago in this discussion, I had asked about pricing on, we see them all over the place now. Fort Thomas has a couple, Newport has a couple. These solar powered flashing pedestrian crossing signs where you go up, you push a button, it flashes the LEDs around it. It's the same sign, pedestrian crossing, but it brings much more attention that someone is in the crossing. At that time, I really didn't get a solid estimate on what the cost would be, but I would like to also investigate that as an option, because I think that would be much more permanent, much more durable, a lot less maintenance required. And then when the time comes to propose A or B to council, you know, the budgetary condition of it, then council can decide which way they want to go.
The good news, Commissioner Barry, Councilman Barry, is that Larry, we have actually bids coming in on pedestrian bump outs in that area. And on April 22nd, we're supposed to get bids for that project that we got a grant for. Bob, is that right? April 22nd, is that when they're due?
Yeah. Yes.
So that will help a little bit, because that people will see the pedestrians on the bump outs and they're more likely to slow down when that happens as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've been pushing for that for years to get done, and I realize it's going to change the complexion of our central business district. I want to make sure that, you know, our main job as a council and elected officials is creating a safe city. And I just sit down there and watch people dodging. We've got kids, we've got elderly, we've got people in wheelchairs, we've got people that aren't really paying attention, because a lot of pedestrians don't. We have to make those 3 or 4 blocks a lot safer. The bump outs are going to do some of that, but especially as the Berry Street ramp comes in, that 6th and Berry is already, but it's going to become more of a center of our city.
Absolutely.
And I don't like people blowing through the center of our city at 35 miles an hour into a 45-degree angle. So my hope is that we can investigate that with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and say, just go and turn it to 4-way red. Can we do it? Then have it to a vote of council on whether or not they want to do it. And then on the pedestrian signage, I think that's great, but I'd like to see option A and option B.
I was just doing some research over here because we recently installed a couple flashing stop signs, I believe, throughout town. The solar kind that you're requesting, Mr. Neary, and they're north of $1,000 per sign.
Oh, cheap.
Yeah, they're not cheap. I'm not saying you can put a cost on safety, but they're north of $1,000 a sign. We can provide you with both costs. How many do you want? Do you want one on every corner? I mean,
well, I would say I'm driving through town this weekend trying to count the intersections that don't have a stop sign. And about the only ones are at Walnut, Vine, McKinney, and Dayton. I think those are the only intersections. They're definitely the only ones on 6. So you've got 4 intersections there. You'd be talking about 8 signs, 1 point at each direction. And we've got economic development funds. And I think that awareness of pedestrian safety is going to help make it more of a vibrant business district.
I think we should also take in the note that flashing signs in front of residential homes, especially in historic districts, should be considered.
I don't disagree. However, it's also a matter of public safety, and these only flash when someone is in the crosswalk, when they press the button.
Understood.
We also have an RFP out right now for engineering services, and among those services we want are people who have engineers who have traffic backgrounds. So we probably want to, once we bring somebody on doing that, seek their advice. They may not want to do it on every intersection because sometimes you have so many people ignore them, and you there's a term for that. I can't remember what it is, but we might want to talk to an expert about where you want to place these things.
I had forwarded that traffic survey from, I think, 2014. I had forwarded that to you and the mayor.
I got it.
Has that been passed out to the rest of council?
I don't think so, but I can do that if you like me to.
I mean, it's boring reading. It's kind of like the audit, but it gives you an idea of the traffic flow through the different intersections that can be taken into consideration. But with Pedestrian Safety Month, I encourage everybody to slow down on the avenue now. We'll see what the changes are with the bump outs, and if we can make these other changes, I think it'll make it a much more pedestrian friendly.
Since you brought up
Joe,
the bump outs, that was approved to put out the bid and ends on the 22nd, which also falls Pedestrian Safety Month.
And I do have a question, which, Joe, I agree with you 100%. I'm a mother who's taking my kid to school every day, and that intersection is a nightmare. What would it cost to have a light flashing before you get close to that intersection, letting people know it's like a school zone? It's kind of like you slow down just a little bit. I know when I go out to work and I go past Erlanger, they have one that's flashing to let you know. You know what I mean? And it only goes off during certain school zones, like, you know what I mean, the hours they're in.
Well, I think, yeah, I've been down there looking at that too, especially going westbound from Hansman's, and then you got to make that blind curve, and then you look up and see whether it's green or red. You could put one on one of the poles there right at the curve, but I think probably 95% of the people that go through that intersection live in Dayton. So they're going to get used to having a stop sign there. The other benefit of a four-way stop, I don't know if you've ever sat on Berry Avenue wanting to turn left. You
5
could
days
be
a
there
week.
a long time.
Yeah.
Your dinner, your takeout dinner will get cold before you get back on the 6th.
If a child is crossing at that corner when that light is so short, you will sit through the light twice. So when the kids are crossing, I make that turn every day. Well, let me say Monday through Friday when my daughter's in school. And when the kids are crossing, you sit through the light twice just to make a left because of the new traffic pattern with the COVID and how Lincoln and the high school set up. So, I mean, it's just backed up.
Like I said,
and people get frustrated and they like to run it when they shouldn't.
Right, and people get upset, they get upset about waiting and they're banging the walk button and then they say, oh, I'll just go for it. It's just a matter of pedestrian and traffic safety and flow, and especially in the center of our city. I think Mr. Edmondson and Mr. Fawcett, if you can pressure or find some clout that we have with KYTC on that issue with the signaling. I was reading through the 1969 comprehensive plan, and at that time it said that the signal boxes were owned by the city. Whether that was correct or whether that's changed since then, I don't know, but I would like to investigate that rather than just, they're only interested in moving cars quickly. I'm interested in slowing them down, and I'm one of the cars.
Absolutely, we can do that.
And then when you come back with your results and everything, then council can decide what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have the traffic engineer involved, because whoever that would be, because they might have some ideas that they could help us with. That won't probably happen until the next meeting though. So, but we can work on it before then.
you know, a traffic engineer is great, but like I said, their priority is vehicle speed, vehicle throughput. I'd like to also, if we could, involve, what is it, Vision Zero NKY, who is very involved with pedestrian safety. I have a couple of contacts there, and we can maybe get them involved to look at the pedestrian aspect of it.
Okay.
That's all I have, sir, on that subject.
Does anybody else have any discussions regarding traffic pedestrian safety month?
Let's throw a blinker on Irvin Terrace too while we're at it, or maybe a ramp, something to slow them down.
Speed bump. Well, that is all that we have on our agenda today. So if there's no more discussions regarding that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. We're excited to see everybody in person, if you so choose, on May 4th, 2021.
I would like to make the motion to adjourn, sir.
If you'd like to make that motion, sir, do I have a second to adjourn?
I would like to second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Good night.
Night.